Welcome to day one of Journey to Self Inc.'s 2024 Please Ask campaign and training week. Y'all, this year you can expect to hear from some inspiring, informative, and extremely motivational speakers who will take us on this amazing journey of overcoming child sexual abuse while simultaneously, right, empowering us all to please ask kids questions to determine sexual abuse. I am Aniqua Acree. I am the founder of Journey to Self Inc. And it is my hope that every year we bring new insight into exactly what child sexual abuse is, how to prevent it, but also showcase that it is so possible to have a leading and fulfilling life after trauma. Adult education is extremely important when it comes to preventing child sexual abuse. And joining me today to just help me on this advocacy journey is the amazing creator, Callie. Good
Hello.
morning, Callie.
Morning. Good morning.
Yes, can you please introduce yourself to our viewers by just sharing who you are and why you agreed to bring awareness to child sexual abuse with me?
But of course, so I'm actually Natasha. I go by Callie. It's my pen name. It's part of my business name. So people just assume that I am Callie, but my name is Natasha. But everyone calls me Callie. So that is more than perfectly fine to address me as such. Um, I am a writer and a teacher at my core, right? I have my master's in creative nonfiction. And I've been teaching people, well, a lot of high school students, honestly. I taught at the high school level, students how to write to heal, a lot of creative writing. And since then, I've really just been trying to figure out where I want to go with my own writing. So right now, I'm currently working on a family anthology. And the family anthology is not just about those that were abused within the family, but those that were affected by the abuse, those that told, those that didn't tell, and just how that affects the family overall, one family and my family, hence the reason why I was invited here, right? Because I'm also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And throughout my journey, I've learned that many of my family members were also molested in my family, and some by the exact same predator. So that's who I am. That's what I do. And that's why I want to make sure that it's kind of like a two-part mission. One, to do the preventative, which is why I really enjoy the whole idea of the Please Ask campaign, because, the question is, well, how do you know? Like, why didn't my parents know? Why couldn't they just tell? A lot of times you can't just tell, you just can't. So you have to ask questions. Why would I ask questions if there's nothing wrong? Well, because you don't know if there's anything wrong. When I left predator's presence, I was happy as heck to get to my mama. She didn't know that I was happy just to see her, so why would she think that anything was wrong at my grandparents' house, because I was always happy by the time she came to get me. Well, she was sad going there, but no kid wants to go to school, while their parent goes to work, or nobody wants to have to go to this person's house. So she doesn't think well, maybe she's being abused there, or maybe there's something going on. Because again, when I came out, I was so happy. So, you do a little bit more than, digging and prodding and trying to figure out and make sure without it feeling like you're digging and prodding, right? So you have to have these activities with these kids to get there. But that's who I am, and that's my first part. The second part of my mission is to make sure that, as you said, once you have experienced this trauma, that you can lead a life that is fulfilling and happy. And yeah, you're going to have your ups and your downs, but you don't have to always feel like a victim. How to turn that victimization into survival, and being a survivor and helping others do the same. So that's the second part of the mission, just teaching people how to write to heal. And I'm not saying that writing is the end all be all, that you're going to write and you're going to feel great. Sometimes you're going to write and you're going to feel horrible, right?
Right.
Right. And eventually those insights and those reflections are going to help you understand why you feel the way that you feel, right? And how to actually cure yourself ultimately. That's the goal. And I'm not saying that this is notwithstanding God, because you can't do nothing without God. So let's be clear on that, right?
Right.
It's
That
like
part.
God is the person God is the one, the thing, the person that is going to actually remove the shame. Shame ain't going away without God. I don't care what nobody say. Like, the shame, we say, oh, just put it on your abuser, put it on the predator. It's not that easy. You need a lot more help, even than writing, to remove that shame.
So true. The journey to healing is definitely a journey, to say the least. Yes. And I want to thank you so much for the introduction, because I'm truly honored to get this opportunity to just add to J2 West's network of self-healers, right? By having you join this year's campaign. And with this being day one of our campaign, I think it's so important that I point out the fact that many people, when they hear the term sexual abuse or child sexual abuse, they automatically think rape. And rape usually almost always involves penetration. But in reality, sexual abuse does not always mean rape, right? It's so important that we understand that child sexual abuse also includes inappropriate touching, harmful touching. It could, have that penetration component as well of a child's genital or sensitive areas, but it's definitely this umbrella. Sexual abuse can also extend beyond the physical, y'all. It can include situations where children are forced to watch inappropriate or pornographic material. They could be photographed in sexually explicit manners and ways. And so with us having this broad range when it comes to sexual abuse, one way to actually prevent it is to make sure we have our children in safe environments. Because oftentimes when a child experiences this form of abuse, and you've kind of touched on this a little bit in your intro, when a child experiences this, they don't always feel comfortable or even know how to let someone know what has taken place. So my question to you, Callie, is what type of environment do you think would have helped you feel safe and feel comfortable confiding in your support system when you experienced this as a child?
So, this is a funny question, because I can honestly say I didn't feel unsafe. I came from a loving family. Now, don't get me, they argue, but I come from a 2-parent household. Like, I didn't have any fear of rejection or, harm coming to me. Like, I didn't even fear my predator doing something to me. Right? It wasn't that. My fear was because our family was so loving and so family oriented. I mean, we had, to this day, they have events at least once a month. It's somebody's birthday. My father's the first out of 12 kids,
Oh, wow.
So it's like,
big family.
And we're not gonna talk about my mama's side. She's 17 out of 25 kids. So that's a whole nother, but they're in another state. But it's like where I was born and bred in DC. Like, our family was, my dad's side of the family was our family. And so my fear was my dad is going to kill his younger brother. And not in real rap. Like, and not that my dad's any type of murder. My dad's the nicest person on the planet. But me being a
he don't play about his baby.
Me being a 6-year-old, 10-year-old, all throughout my childhood, I just knew my dad was a protector. And if I told my dad, if I even whispered that something like this had occurred, my dad was going to go ham, right? And that was one thing. And then, of course, it was my mom is going to hate my grandparents, because why didn't they know? My mom feels like she's taking me to a safe place. She's never going to forgive them for their idea of babysitting me is sending me downstairs to my uncle Lamont's bedroom. You know what I mean? Like, go take care of her. And it's not their fault, I don't believe. Maybe they could have asked more questions, but my grandma was upstairs cooking her collard greens, and my grandfather's there eating his peanuts, and I'm downstairs playing with my Uncle Lamont, right? So, my fear was that my dad is going to disrupt the family. That was the
Yeah.
ultimate fear. And so I didn't want to be the cause of disruption of, we play red light, green light, going up and down the hill every Saturday at my grandparents' house.
Right.
I don't want to disrupt that jovial environment that I even knew and loved as a kid. I just didn't love being with my uncle. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So in order to create a safer environment, the only thing I can do is, say that they could have, like my mom, one thing I will say, my mom, devout Christian, never talked about sex with me. So that
Yeah.
is something that probably would have made some type of difference. I can't say that, just because your parents talk to you about sex, that's going to make you tell.
Right.
I don't know.
But it definitely opens up that gateway and gives that opportunity.
Never talked about sex with me. So I didn't know. I mean, my first experience with sex outside of my uncle was, HBO late at night. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Right.
and that was a secret, right? Because that wasn't something that you were supposed to do as a church going little 6-year-old or 10-year-old or whatever, like that doesn't make sense. But I was having those interests and those ideas because of what my uncle had done to me. And
exactly.
There was probably a time when my mom yelled at me like, what? I remember them taking the cable out, not necessarily telling me it was because of that, but me knowing I was a smart kid, knowing what, the ramifications and why that ended up happening. But, I feel like the only way that she could have done better, or that my parents together could have done better, was having that type of discussion, maybe. And then even just talking more about, I don't ever remember my brother calling me right now. That's so crazy. I don't ever remember my family, like literally just my parents saying, how was your day today? Not because they didn't care.
Right.
They was working. My dad's a truck driver. Mom work, had a good government job. You know what I mean? Like, we from DC. Like, they were busy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that they didn't care, but I don't remember them asking, what did you do in school today? What happened? And I think that is something that parents need to normalize. Literally sitting down with your kid for 20, 30 minutes a day. Hey, you know what? Let's talk. What happened today? Tell me, what she do?
Yes.
Just be the advocate, the ally.
Right.
You don't gotta think like your best friend is your child or nothing like that, but just be their ally. Let them know that I am a friend as well.
Exactly.
You hear parents say that I ain't your friend. Well, you should.
Right, you should be. Exactly. It's funny because now as a mom, I always look back on the things I endured as a child. And what you just shared is definitely very similar to me. I feel like I waited so long to share my story and talk about my journey because I never necessarily had the space to do so. I was never asked. And at one point, I can remember when my mom's brother actually was jailed for harming another child. And when that situation happened, my mom came to me and her words were, I know he didn't do anything like that to you, right? And it's like very misleading. And so the way that we talk to children is also really, really important. We can't do those leading questions. We have to keep it open-ended, and we have to control our own feelings at the same time. If we truly want to be that safe person that the baby is comfortable coming to and confiding in. So thank you for pointing that out. I feel like the number one reason why child sexual abuse is like the number one threat against children is because predators are literally relying on our silence as their protection. They are coming up with these ways to keep us quiet, and they're like, I can do this for forever almost because no one will ever find out. So can you share a little bit about what is something you realized after you freed yourself from holding in your truth? Did any realizations come out once you told?
So I feel like the one thing that clearly realizing that it wasn't just me, you know.
Mm, right.
And I posted to my Instagram. So I started writing, of course. I ended up getting my master's, and then I would do like some public readings every once in a while. And I think I posted one of my public readings to my Instagram account. And I just remember one of my cousins just coming, and she just saying, "Was it Uncle Lamont?" And I was like, "Yes." And she went silent for a while and then came back with all of her information. And I mean,
Mm,
her information that she provided other cousins that had been
right.
molested, that she knew for a fact, that had
Right.
told, and why she didn't tell, and the reaction. Like, so she
Yeah.
had given me a plethora of information. And I'll say that probably happened within the last 5 years, right?
Okay.
And throughout even those 5 years, just having private conversations with other family members that still aren't ready to actually discuss
Right.
it openly, you know,
Yeah.
but that was probably my realization. And I will go back. So when I first started dealing with it, like actually trying to handle it, right, trying to deal with
Right.
myself, going to therapy, I had a really bad therapist, right? So I
Mm,
went to the therapist, and I remember her quasi blaming me and saying, "Well,
wow.
if you would have told, that you would have helped a lot of other people." And this was before I knew about my family members, right?
Oh, wow.
Um, she said this, and I'm like, it made me feel bad, because I did feel that way, because my uncle has a brood of girls. I mean, he has at least 4 daughters, right?
Right.
And
Wow.
throughout my, as I got older, I did start feeling the guilt, like, oh my gosh, because I'm reading now, they're older, they have a MySpace, or, their Instagram or whatever. I guess it was
Yeah.
MySpace at the time. And I'm reading their information, and I know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this, he
Right.
did that to her. And,
Right.
I have never confronted her, but I'm reading her poetry, her poems, how much she hates her dad. And I'm like,
Right.
oh my gosh. And so when my therapist says it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's my fault. So again,
Mhm.
that shame, and just nobody, when another adult who is a licensed therapist tells you
Right.
feel that way. That's why I say nobody can get that shame off of you except for God. Like
Yeah.
it's so much more work to try to go and get help, when your help is, for me, my help is God. Like, it just kind of
Yeah.
let it go, release it to God, so that you then can say, yes, it is important to speak up. It is important to ask these questions,
Mhm.
but do not blame yourself because you did it. And that's what,
Exactly.
after I spoke on it, because
Yeah.
it, and going back to one of my relatives, when they actually did tell me what was going on, they told me that they didn't tell because they knew someone else told, and that person was rejected. That person was by
Wow.
her own mother, was rejected. So there were people within our family that had some,
Exactly.
whether
And
they
that's
believed it or
usually how it is in
yeah,
many family and most of our families. It's like someone knew, someone said it, they just swept it under the rug.
yeah,
And now you have this generational trauma, right? That just keeps
it's
taking
church, right?
place.
Yeah.
Wow. It's so interesting because I feel like once you get to the point in your journey where you are able to start telling your truths and telling what you experience, you somewhat get to jumpstart that healing journey. I
Mhm.
know for me personally, I suppressed what happened to me for decades. Like for so long, I was literally a grown adult when I
Wow.
started to talk about what I experienced. And I realized that once I started talking about it, I started to meet other people who had also experienced the same thing. And I'm starting to see reflected back at me different things I needed to work on. And I feel like had I not spoken up about what I experienced, I would have never known just how, or the hold, I should say, that it truly had on me, whether that was my anger issues or my need to control like every aspect of my life down to the T, to the point that is
Mhm.
stressful and just
Yeah.
so many other things. So I wonder, as a survivor yourself, what are some methods that have allowed you to heal and like reconnect with yourself now that you're sharing your story and your journey?
So, enclosed cognition was a term that I came across not until I started studying for my master's, right? And what enclosed cognition in layman's terms is just pretty much the power to put on your power, like how you feel, right?
Right.
The definition is something along the lines of, your clothing influencing your behavior and your psychological decisions, right?
Right.
And not just influencing you, but also influencing others, right? Because if I put on, it's just like put on your red blazer when you go into this interview and show them that you're strong, or
Right.
put on your blue pinstripe because you want to show them that, you can assimilate and, like however it is. But your clothing speaks for you. And I never had any idea. I mean, I've been a fashionista my entire life, okay? Always trying to get best dressed in middle school, high school. Like, I mean, I was gonna be fly, okay?
Right.
Like that was that's how I made it through life, okay? Like this is a runway, honey. We're gonna look good all day, every day. And it's really like once I realized that that's what I was doing, that was a coping mechanism, and I never knew it. And like I said, all of us do it to some extent, But I mean, it's like, tell me you're fearless without saying a word. Okay, I'm going to pink sweater. I'm going to put on this red tulle skirt with a long train, and I'm going to put on my top hat, and I'm going to walk into this networking event. And I don't know a soul in here, but guess what? They're going to know me before I leave, and I'm going to know them too. And no matter how nervous you get before, you know what I mean?
Right.
You are going into something like, just think about, I'm going to wear this. We all do it. You lay out your clothes before a date. You know what I mean? Like, know what you want to project into yourself and onto others. So enclosed cognition is definitely one of the ways that I realized after the fact that I've been coping, like that's just what you do and who you are. And it goes into like your whole identity, your whole being, so that's definitely one way that I cope before I knew anything about writing, because everybody hates writing, right? Before I even
look, that's a passion of mine too.
So. I don't want to get my degree revoked, but I remember in college undergrad, boy, I used to have my best friend. Can you write this paper, boy? Because I don't feel like it. Okay,
right?
Want to write nothing,
But yes, and see. This is why I absolutely love the Please Ask campaign. We get to define sexual abuse, talk about ways to prevent it, but also be so authentic, right? And sharing what healing journey we personally are on. And I know healing is different for everybody, right? But I feel like a lot of times when you've experienced the same type of trauma, you have some similar trauma responses. So I definitely think you sharing that could help someone, could help a viewer. So I appreciate it so much. And since we're flowing into the concept of healing from sexual trauma, have you experienced, I know you touched on it a little bit, but have you experienced any identity changes as you've moved through your healing journey? And if so, how are you coping with it in addition to the fashion?
So again, this is something that is near and dear to my heart. I've actually coined a term called identaholism, okay? And I was studying for my master's. One of the things that I learned in just reading other female writers, mostly, I did not read a lot of male writers who had suffered from CSA, but most of my teachers also in my master's program had suffered from some type of sexual abuse, be it childhood, all types of stuff. And from reading these different female writers, every single one of them had this alter ego. And it started in the teenage years, usually revolved or involved some sort of promiscuity or something else that they were ashamed, right? And what they would do is like, you have yourself, you're your innocent self, and you've been victimized, but you're your innocent self in some cases. you still have these feelings and these thoughts, and you want to do things that aren't so innocent. So you
Right,
create,
right.
oh, that's Sherry. Sherry's going to do all of that freaky stuff. You know what I mean? And so you start creating these different identities and these different ways to compartmentalize
Mm-hmm.
who you are, and you start breaking yourself down and recreating to get away from. Now you want to get away from Sherry, so let me create a new name. And
Right.
this happened. I remember the first time that I created my new identity. I was in middle school, and somebody got ready to call me Tata. That was like my childhood nickname in my family. Everybody called me Tata. And I just remember somebody playing around. I was like, yeah, they call you Tata. And I was like, hold up, stop. Like, don't call me Tata no more. Like that. I don't. And in my head, it was like, I don't want to be associated with that victim. I don't want to be not a little girl. I know what happened, and I'm keeping it because I don't want him to go to jail. I don't want him to get killed. Like, I have my reasons, because I always, like, I'm smart, like I said, right? So as a kid, I'm saying, like, I felt like I was smart. I know what I'm doing. So this is, don't call me Tata, okay?
Okay.
So just so happened, one of my girlfriends, and I remember in middle school, she started calling me Tasha Boo. So that's my name now. I'm Tasha. It was on my yearbook. Like, everybody was signing Tasha Boo. So that was my first taking ownership of identiholism, right? And just saying, oh no, I'm a new person. And it went on and on and on up until Cali, right?
Wow. I love it.
And it as I really started getting closer to my healing journey, I was able to say, no, I'm Natasha. I'm Natasha, as my mom would say, Natasha Elaine, to be exact, when she yelling down, where you at? So that is who I am. But it took a long part of this journey for me to get there. I mean, there are people that will watch this video right here today that I've known as far back as 1996 that will say, her name is what? No, her name is Natasha. I never knew that a day in my life, and they will not be lying. They probably been all types of places with me and had other countries. They have no idea what my birth name was. You know what I mean? What my birth name was, and that was part of the setting the boundaries, right? That coping mechanism, setting the boundaries, because you don't deserve to know all of me, right? Because knowing all of me gives you an opportunity to hurt me. And I didn't want to be vulnerable in that state. And you don't need to know what I was doing back then when they was calling me Xander. You don't need to know. Like, it's like creating these different identities to survive. And like I said, I coined the term identiholism. And the metaphor in one of my books is literally the Matryoshka doll. And it's by coincidence, of course, that my name is Natasha, like the Russian doll, right?
Right.
But it's like this Matryoshka doll that, you open up, and it's another, and it's another. And then you get to that little Tata all the way at the bottom. But we had to, at some point, get all the way up to Natasha, because she is all of those. She is all encompassing. And until you actually have gotten anywhere in your healing, like, we can still play, and I can still talk to people. That people still call me Xander or whatever names they want to call me, and I'm okay with that. But I don't hesitate to let them know, that's not my real name, right?
Right, exactly. Now hold on. So I completely understand what you're saying. And I believe, like, every single person, right, has different aspects to who they are. And when you add in an experience such as sexual trauma, especially during the childhood, the plot thickens. So it definitely resonates, everything you're saying. And when a child does not have, like, a safe space or an outlet, I should say, they usually tend to get lost within themselves. So I'm very happy that we're just uplifting this topic right now. And one thing I admire about you, you've touched on it, is your love and your talent for writing. I personally, and I think I told you this before, I've used writing to help me heal from the trauma I experienced as a child, but also using writing to help me just decompress what I go through in my adulthood from day to day. And I feel like it's helped me break free from a lot of the heaviness that healing can also bring. So, in a sense, writing has allowed me to be whoever I want to be, right? I get to share my story in some very creative ways. And as a professional writer yourself, how
Mhm.
do you recommend we could possibly like incorporate writing or even storytelling with our interactions with children? Do you think it's a way that we could use this tool to help them release whatever they may be holding in? What are your thoughts on that?
So, I do nonfiction, so I can't really speak too much to storytelling, only
Right.
because the term to me just sounds fictional or sounds like a made up story. And that's fair. When I first started writing, I made up all types of stories trying to get this thing off my chest. I mean, I
Right.
wrote all types of craziness. And that's a way to get started. But I feel like when you know better, you do better. And
Very
if
true.
I am working with, even like younger kids, I think the first thing as a parent or as a teacher, I would just start by, I mean, first I would call it expressive writing, right?
Okay.
And,
I love it.
and I think that I would start specifically on a one-on-one type of basis, right?
Mhm.
And what I would do is whether it's an aunt, whether it's whether it is your child, whether it is a teacher, a tutor, I would have someone, if I can't do it for whatever reason, 10, 15 minutes a day,
Yeah.
let's make it fun, time it, let's write about what happened this morning, let's see who
Right.
can write it
Right.
the fastest in 10 minutes. Tell me everything that you did this morning and make it fun. And when that child is writing and you're writing, after you get done, the timer goes off. You know what? Read.
Hmm.
Tell him what your morning was like. And then let them
Right.
do, or have them go first, or what have whichever way makes the most sense for that child, because some children might be shy or what have you, but
Right.
makes the most sense. Like, you read a line, let them read a line. You read a line, but make it fun, making it doesn't take longer than, I promise you, 20 minutes, 10 minutes to actually do it. And even if they only get 3 sentences down in 10 minutes, so what?
Right.
That's what you do, right?
Hmm.
And 10 minutes to write it and 5 minutes to read it and talk about it for another 5 minutes. And that way, that connection is there. And so when you then go from what happened last night or this morning or yesterday to,
Yeah.
let's write about a time when you were really angry about something. Let's
Right.
and what made you feel better.
Yeah.
Let's write about a time when somebody really disappointed you. And you can start getting into these deeper conversations with your child, your student, your
Yeah.
person, right?
Yeah.
Just start to create this communication just through paper, just through writing.
Right.
And
Oh,
and
love
then
it.
sharing and talking about it, but not giving advice. You don't,
Right.
not a time for you to say, oh, well, this is what you should have done. No, just listen.
Yeah. Just
And the
listen.
more that child starts recognizing the ability to communicate this way, as they get older, they'll start understanding the insights that they're getting and those
Right.
reflective, opportunities to be like, oh my gosh, like, it's like keeping a diary, right? You go back and you read your
Exactly.
diary, 10 years later, you're like, Lord, what was I? But but that's how I feel like you can incorporate it with a child.
Yes.
In high school, I built it in high school. I don't know how, the grace of God, I managed to get my classes down to 15 students. Don't,
Wow.
I got my masters. I know what I'm doing, right? And they
Right.
listen. And I got my classes down small enough where we could have these intimate discussions at the high school level, in a real high school, in a public high school. This wasn't private. This
Wow.
wasn't, an honors class. These were real,
Right.
had real situations every day. And I got them
Mm.
to the point where they were willing to discuss it and stand up in front of the class and read it.
Oh,
And
wow.
I mean, from children that have been cutters to children, I mean, just children who were being abused, like all types of things, where it's like
Yeah.
they realize, I can say this because she said that last week,
Right.
and then I
Right.
would join in, I would write some stuff, and I didn't necessarily go into my abuse in class because I never wanted to be that personal with my,
Yeah.
maybe in a different setting I would have done that, but in the
Right.
public high school, I don't want to get in trouble, you know what I mean?
Right.
advice or no ideas once again. But it's like when you have that, once you start creating it, it will only grow, that intimacy.
Right.
And so I feel like that's the best way to reach out and find out and ask without asking,
Right. Right.
without making it uncomfortable, because eventually they're gonna spill it out.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Wow, that is so amazing. I love hearing about your experience when you were at the high school. I swear. And I don't know if I ever told you, but my husband, he's also a high school teacher, and he's a girls' head basketball coach.
Oh
And
wow.
so I've just seen from experience just the life-changing factor that takes place when you have educators like you and like him. So it's just such a blessing that you were there, right? To be able to just start that process for them. Because I can only imagine the type of people they would have been if they were still like holding that stuff in.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I'm definitely inspired over here to do more creative things, especially incorporating writing when I'm talking or just interacting with my own children. I have a 10-year-old and we set aside time to journal. Journaling is really big in my house, right? But we haven't like necessarily incorporated like a follow-up or like a discussion piece to it too. So I'm looking forward, yeah, to adding that part in just to help me, like you said, yeah, get a little bit more closer and intimate with her. So I love it. Before we go, we're getting ready to wrap up our conversation. I want to respect your time. And I would love to end by asking what advice do you have for people who may feel a little bit stuck in the trauma that they've experienced as a child?
I mean, I can't say anything but right. You have to write your trauma. You have to write the effects, write the affects, right? You have to
Yeah.
write about your feelings. I mean, eventually, the more you write, like I said, even if it's only 5 minutes a day, write one
Right.
sentence, something. The more you write, the more you'll actually be writing your cure. Like you'll figure out
Ooh,
what do I need to get past.
right.
So the
Mm,
more that you are writing down the trauma and the effects and how it made you feel and how did you get better that day? What happened
right.
that day? Who
Right.
smiled that day? Maybe your cure is simply just laughing all the time. Like you just don't know what
Yeah.
everybody is different. So
So
I
true.
I mean, researchers have already said like writing physically like makes you
Yeah.
feel like it actually balances your T count. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So helps you, physiologically because
Yeah.
of the stress and anxiety of keeping a secret,
Mm,
right? Keeping that secret, it's insidious. It eats you from the inside.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
so it's like once you're actually able not to just talk about it, like I said, but to write about it and then go back and reflect on what you wrote and just dig deeper and deeper. Even like I said, even if you only wrote one sentence, the next day, just write what did that sentence even mean? Like what was I talking about
Right.
today?
Mm,
Just write. And the more that you write, the more you will get closer to your own absolute healing. And I'm never going to say that you're ever going to be absolutely healed, but you will get closer to it, right?
right. Because it's definitely a continuous journey.
Yeah, just emotionally, the other part is that once you start writing, somebody's going to read it. It's going to help
Right.
people. So it's that feeling, that greater sense of meaning, that you
Right.
have been looking for. Like, God, why did you let this happen to me?
Yeah.
Because I knew that you was the one that was going to be able to survive and tell others how to do the same thing. Because
Right.
it's not only going to happen to you, and it's not even just about helping someone survive childhood sexual abuse. It could be helping them survive just the daily nuances of life. Like this is
Right.
going back to just simply journaling. Just talk about what happened at the job. Why did she do what she did at work today? Like, what's wrong with her?
Yeah.
Wrong with her. People say don't get mad at them, pray for them, right? But in order
Yep.
to pray, you gotta actually consider and think about what should I be praying for? Like how
Yes.
can I
Very
actually help
true.
them? So it's like your writing not only helps you, but it's helping these other people.
Right. Oh,
And that's what I feel. I just feel like the more you write, and don't fool yourselves that you're gonna be a writing fool every day, and you're just gonna be writing, 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 writing. You're gonna have lows. I had a low. Okay, my first book, I was writing that book for like child, 12 years, okay, because I kept starting and stopping and starting and stopping. I still ain't published it, you know what I mean? Because it's
Right.
not right. And now I'm working on this project and working on that project, and I'll get back to actually publishing something other than short works of art at some point. But I'm getting there, you know, that's the journey.
Right.
That's the journey. So hopefully
Definitely.
the current project will, it's going to do a lot. It's going to shake some things up, within the family itself, but within just life,
Right.
and
Oh,
just,
I'm excited
oh,
to read it. Oh my
me
gosh.
too. Me too. But my cousin say, I'm sending you something this month. I'm like, okay, I can't wait. Like, I'm excited, So yeah, it's
Yes,
going to be interesting to say the least. Definitely engaging, I'm sure. I'm sure. 'Cause my
definitely.
family is full of personality. So I can only, yeah, it's going to be great. It is.
Oh, I love it. I love everything that you shared with us this morning. I am so excited for our viewers to see this content, engage with it. Thanks to everyone who is watching right now. I am so excited to kick off this campaign for today, and I want you all to be sure to follow J2 West on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube so that you do not miss this 5-day campaign. Tomorrow, we'll be kicking off another conversation, focusing a little bit on motherhood and healing as well. Callie, you are absolutely amazing. I will be tagging you everywhere that this video airs. Anybody who have questions and want to engage with us more, be sure to comment, comment, comment. And in the meantime, I will be connecting with you, Callie, so I can stay up to date on all the amazing things you're creating.
Listen, you're amazing. This foundation is amazing. Like what you guys are doing, you are my inspiration. I told you I have a nonprofit that is always restructuring. We always in the middle of restructuring because I don't know
Right.
what the heck I'm doing, but I'm doing it, and it's going to happen.
Right.
But you are my inspiration. So I appreciate you. You are amazing. And I am very, very grateful to have met you. So thank you for reaching out.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you, sis. Anytime. You are welcome anytime.
me.